that. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to having a great conversation with you today. I want to just make sure we all know who each other is. I think all the members may know, but we do have a couple of new folks who are here. So can I just have everyone kind of say their name and see whether they're EMAC member or what their role is on the project team, and I'll just kind of call you out. Abe.
Hey everybody, my name is Abe Mullen. I'm with the Clackamas County Public Health Division, and I sit on EMAC.
Great. Dwight.
Let me come off of mute here. Good afternoon, Dwight Brashear. I am the Transit Director here in Wilsonville, and I am an EMAC member.
Great. James.
Hi, James Paulson. I am an EMAC member.
Great. Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Sprague. I'm with WSP, and I'm part of the NEPA Environmental Justice team.
Eliza.
Hi, I'm Eliza. I'm also with WSP. I'm an associate transportation planner, and I'll be helping out with notes today on the Jamboard.
And Fabian.
Hi, everyone. Fabian here, EMAC member as well.
And Diana.
Hello, everyone. Diana Abelisleos. I'm an EMAC member.
Great. And I'm Anne, and I'm with WSP and but part of the project team. So one of the things we have to do is just highlight that I believe, if I've been told correctly, Dwight, you have agreed to give a little summary at the end about some of our conversation. Is that accurate?
I was strong-armed into it. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, that strong arm will probably continue. And just a reminder as to sort of our purpose today is make sure that some of the ideas that were presented in both the documents and then also the presentation, we want to sort of chew on those today, see which ones we like, toss out the ones we don't, and be able to move this forward. And I think for myself, talking about affordability, that's been sort of top of mind in all of the work that we've done so far. So it's interesting that we're getting to it last because it's the thing I think about first. I don't know about the rest of you. So I think we'll have about 20 minutes, maybe a little bit more, but really just a reminder of listening and learning, and let's dive into things, especially a rationale for why we're saying what we're saying. Before we get started, any questions, just reflections on where we are? No. Okay, we're ready to get going then. Well, the first one was just on the research document. We started to get a few questions on that. Want to make sure we're highlighting any sort of things that seemed that you really liked, things that seemed a little bit off. Anything else before we really get into the meat of the matter, which is just on the different ideas for strategy options.
And this is James.
Yeah.
I appreciate the research to see what other areas have done that want to introduce tolling and so forth. And I think that, looking at that research is important, just kind of to show us that it can be solved, but it really comes down to each geographic area and community needs to really define it for themselves. Because like some of the outcomes that they were able to come to, I don't know how they got there, or anything else as to what took them there, because I think that's what's really important as far as what we're going to be able to do to mitigate some of the challenges around tolling for the impacted communities that we're talking about.
Thank you. Is there any things that folks saw, especially reflecting on what James just said, that like you said, that actually looks similar to what we kind of need here, and we just need to think about that as we move forward?
This is Diana, kind of piggybacking off what James shared, and thank you, James, for sharing what you have, because it really made me think about. I'm familiar with some of those areas where tolling was shared, and I was also, ironically, about 2 weeks ago, I was down in Southern California, and I was on several of those toll highways, and it made me think about the communities around, the communities that these tolls go right through, and the makeup of communities. And it struck me, it just really struck me how different our communities are, right? Compared to Southern California and compared to other parts of the country, and trying to kind of say, you see, it's similar or it looks like. But the reality is the communities that we are talking about here in our own backyard, economically, I mean, just to their whole demographics is very different. And so, as we continue to move forward in this work of figuring out, what is the best practice and how to mitigate through these challenges, I always keep on the forefront of my mind the communities that will be very impacted by this, and it's almost like comparing apples to oranges, when you share this research. So I just want to share that, keep that in mind, and thank you, James, for elevating that.
That is,
Well, just picking up on that, sorry for talking
no,
so
go
much.
ahead.
I totally agree. If we look at just the area that we're focusing on right now on 205 and the needs down there, and if we were to say, hey, well, look at the regional picture. If you look at I-5, the needs are totally different. Because I look at the area that we're talking about, it's from what my understanding is, the needs aren't as much, like the poor communities aren't vast down there. It's really about movement within the area, much more so than I can't even use the road that goes through my neighborhood. I can't afford it kind of a situation. And so like when we look at what we want to do to try and impact, we need to say in this geographic area, here's what the needs of that community are and how we're going to try and mitigate those impacts instead of saying blanket, we can do it like this, let's plug and play, because there is no plug and play on this.
Yeah, building.
Oh, go ahead, Abe.
I would just say kind of building off those comments and specifically Diana's comment about apples and oranges, that was one of the takeaways for the research document for me is it seems like a lot of the research cited is talking about partial toll lane pricing and not full facility pricing, which I think have really different implications for how people perceive them, how people experience them, and how we want to shape our recommendations and policies and strategies. So I think that's a consideration that we want to hold throughout all of the policy and strategy conversations. And I tried to track down that citation around the King County toll poll that they did, looking at perceptions around that. I couldn't find the site, but I did find a research article from the University of Washington that their key takeaway is really resonating with this conversation a lot, where it was equity impacts are always project specific and region specific, which again leans on that apples and oranges, and we can't just cookie cutter what works in another region after they've done a lot of implementation testing and evaluation into our context, because it's unique and it has specific historic and current contexts.
Super important to think about that as we start thinking about some of the ideas. And I don't want to spend all our time just thinking about how we would do the research differently. And can we sort of shift the conversation gently over to sort of our second question, which is the different ideas that Chris brought forward and that you were presented in the meeting materials. Of course, we can try to clarify any questions or just sort of dive in. When I count, there's 5 areas of ideas that have come from your work already, and then from some of the other research. And in those 5 areas, there's about 16 different ideas for potential strategy options. So really want to hear from this group about reactions, questions, things that should just come off the table of, you know, priority, like that's not a priority, or things that absolutely have to go forward. This project will not be a success without some of these strategy options implemented. So I'll just turn it over to you guys on your thoughts and reflections. And
Well, I can't really remember. That was a lot of information to really remember, but one of the things that jumped out that I do remember was we need to look beyond the federal definition of low income as you look at the affected populations.
Okay. And just as we're thinking about different things, I can share my screen. I can either share the Jamboard that Eliza's working on, or we can all look at each other, which is always nice. Or I can share, I have up the different strategy options. So I just want to make sure that we're most helpful. What would be most helpful to you?
If you, for me, this is just me, if you could share the strategy options, because my memory is shot by the end of the day.
Oh, yes. Let me do that.
Thank you.
Okay. And apologies if I don't quite get it right away. Okay. Do you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to rearrange my screen slightly here. Okay. Does it need to be made bigger? Looks like it. Let me see. So it was this page. Is that, is that good? Is that much better? Okay.
Oh.
All righty. So it's 2 pages. So the first one is some of the stuff that Chris went over: toll project analysis and development of an equitable toll program. And then each of these, under these 5 different areas, are some of the things that he went over. There's a little more detail in this document than what Chris went through in the PowerPoint slides. So I'm not sure if one of you who has kind of read it right before the meeting, and I was reminding myself of it, if there's a place we want to really focus on, there's this project analysis. Let me just kind of quickly or slowly page through it. Toll rate setting and future oversight. Those are 6 items there, or 5 items. And then geography-based toll rates. Design a toll system that recognizes historic and current barriers and plans to address them, and be specific about transit investment with toll revenues. So is there a place we want to start? And I wish I could have both pages up at the same time, but that's beyond my technical skills.
I have a couple comments on the policy section if we want to start at the beginning.
Sure.
I think it's interesting looking at this set of policies in comparison to our previous 2 around health and safety and multimodal transit, that we don't have the dedication of either a percentage of net toll or a lump sum to CBOs, because in this document we have some really clear carved out scope of what those dollars could be used for, in supporting community-based organizations and connecting people with the transponders and making sure that those are accessible and feel safe and comfortable to go acquire and install and all of that. So I'm wondering if there's space to incorporate that into this as well for consistency across all of the buckets, to really uplift that as well as an EMAC recommendation, to build community capacity in the toll program.
Okay, and just so Eliza, who's new to this, there's in our transit and multimodal options, and then our neighborhood health and safety, in each of them, they had a recommendation that said devote a percentage or a set amount of money to be able to contribute towards this goal of neighborhood health and safety, transportation affordability, or transit. And so have that consistency across all the recommendations. And that is sort of one thing we wanted to see, is now that we're to the 3rd one, where can we have some overarching things? And that's so but that's what I'm hearing you say, is this overarching, and I'm seeing a head nod from Diana and others. Does that seem like something we should just make sure that is sort of an overarching statement? And Fabienne, I don't want to leave you out, but just because you don't have your camera on today, you can either use some a reaction or, put something in the chat, or just come off mute and say, that sounds good.
Thank you for including me. Right now, I'm just listening, and I agree with what everything has been said, and I do think that because we've hear a lot from the public that they're just completely against tolling, and so I think for those who are low income, even, and I did see it already that there's already a plan to even include a travel toll free for those folks. But yeah, I just don't know how that would look like, and I did maybe miss a little bit of what Chris said, if he did include that in what other states and cities have done in the past and currently doing.
So one thing, I'm just kind of looking at the document here. I think it was one of the strategy options, not the policy, of transponders should be free or come with preloaded credits. Actually, it's probably.
It's in the bottom of the toll rate setting and future oversight.
There we go. Ensure that people experiencing low income who struggle to meet basic food needs will have a path forward to travel toll free. So that's one that you would support to keep on there. How are others with that one? Someone, yes, okay.
Hey, this is James. I'm struggling with what we're trying to do here, because it's a lot of information, and I don't think that wordsmithing is really what we're trying to do. And so I'm not really sure what the outcome is, because I mean, a lot of these sound really great. They're not perfect, but they sound really great.
That's exactly what we want to know. If they all sound really great, we should say, you know what? They all sound really great, and we want to continue moving them forward because we think they're essential. But if they're, so the easier question might be, are there any that give you pause and you think that just doesn't really deserve to be here right now? I just have a lot of questions and it just seems like it's challenging and won't help, or so maybe that's a better question.
I don't want to derail, but it would have been helpful for me if they said, hey, let's prioritize these different things.
Okay.
But we have 3 minutes.
Oh.
I'm with James. I like that prioritizing these.
Mm-hmm.
And not only prioritizing, but organizing them in a sense of a timeline.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of these I agree with. It's just like, okay, so the horse before the cart before the horse. What are we talking about here?
Why don't we just have like a whole workshop? We could get so much done, but no, we're going to get so much. Nick's going to call us back here in a moment. Stephanie, did you have a thought there?
I had put something in the chat before we went to small breakout rooms about, I saw that there was an acknowledgement of sort of the language barrier and making sure that we're addressing any type of language barrier with the way that the toll system is implemented. But I'm curious if there's been any discussion about technology barriers and like providing support to folks who may not be comfortable with technology and like a support line or something, because that's come up in some of our discussions as we've been doing the NEPA work, and I just wasn't sure if that was there somewhere or if it needed to be.
There is one of providing a cash-based option for paying tolls, and
I'm more talking about like people who are having technology barriers with computers, like accessing their account information or, learning about the program. We so often tell people go visit a website, but there are folks that just aren't comfortable with that. So that's my comment.
Okay.
I would just say that COVID has like knocked that down, where it's like, now if you don't have a level of technological savvy, then you just won't get those services. And that's how it is on a lot of things now.
Yeah, and I would wrap that in with the bullet around collaborating with trusted organizations and working with ones that do support technology access and making sure that those are included in these strategies. And So if I were to make like a general recommendation, is just bolster that recommendation a lot around collaboration with trusted organizations, because I think that access to transponders is going to be a big barrier for a lot of people, and there's going to be a lot of hesitance around putting something like that into their cars and maintaining it and everything associated with that. So if there's opportunities to invest a lot of time and resource in cultivating that program so that it's transparent and safe, and we're applying all of our trauma-informed principles to that work, and it has solid framing around why it's necessary to build understanding around it, I think that could be paired with that technology piece.
Okay, thank you. What are the other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that from the community that I work with, it includes a lot of like language barriers, right? But not only that, it's also a lot of like, internet barriers as well, and just technology barriers. And even like we're talking about not only different languages, but different dialects, like indigenous dialects from other indigenous like countries. So that is like, definitely a barrier. And I like that idea of, making sure that that's something that the community-based organizations can support, facilitate those conversations on how to educate people. And even when we create the website, make it very simple so folks can kind of navigate a lot easier.
This is Diana. I just want to add, as we're all seeing a lot of pushback from community, regardless of language, socioeconomic status, etc., the pushback on, vaccines and wearing a face mask, just makes me wonder about the community's pushback on having a transponder installed in your vehicle, and thinking about how best to start, a plan mitigating through those concerns, those pushback, and how we communicate that back out into community. Darn it, we got 43 seconds left.
Oh, we
40,
could do so
40
much
now.
more. We've just scratched the surface.
Right.
Yeah.